Well, listeners, in case you didn't get enough sports today, here's an ad break that'll tell you how to watch even more sports. YouTube is the new home of NFL Sunday Ticket. And if you sign up now, you'll get our lowest full season price of the year. Just go to youtube.com/presale to get $100 off NFL Sunday Ticket. Watch your favorite teams out-of-market Sunday afternoon games, exclusively on YouTube and YouTube TV. All right, enough about sports. Go get more sports. Terms and embargoes apply. Offer ends June 6th. No refunds.
This episode is brought to you by Dave. When you need money in a pinch, Dave can help. It's a banking app that can help you get up to $500 instantly. No interest, late fees, or credit check. Join the millions already using Dave to get financial relief and sign up for an extra cash account to get up to $500 instantly. Go to dave.com/Spotify or download the Dave app now. For terms and conditions, go to dave.com/legal. Instant transfer fees apply. Banking services provided by Evolve Bank and Trust, member FDIC.
Of the NFL draft, which is in the books, and the Bengals stay on the defensive track as they pick up not one but two more defensive stars in the backfield. Welcome into another post-draft edition of the Strictly Stripes podcast. Muhammad Ahmad and Andrew Gillis and Mike Nizick are here with you to recap and break down the Bengals' day 2 picks, with those 2 picks being Michigan's DJ Turner II at cornerback and Alabama safety Jordan Battle. Now, I think, guys, I just want to start with, obviously, DJ Turner. I'm not shocked by that pick one bit. Cornerback made sense for me in that round, obviously. I mean, in general, in this draft, it makes sense, but I'm not shocked they picked one in the second round. But to be honest, DJ Turner's the guy that, when I say I didn't expect him to take him, it's not that I didn't think he was good. He just kind of flew under my radar. Like, was that a guy that you guys had your eyes on? Like, were you kind of shocked that they picked him over, say, Akili Ringo or other guys like that? I mean, I know obviously Tyreek Stevenson was off the board, but, I mean, what was your impression by them taking DJ Turner in the second round?
Well, I mean, as we record this, I mean, people are going to listen to this, I assume, either during or after the day 3 of the draft. So, but as we record this right now, Keely Ringo is still on the board. So I think that kind of definitely was one of those situations where, you know, a lot of people who were not really connected with front offices, or they were a little bit higher on a player than NFL teams were. You know, Ringo, he's, like I said, he's still available. So I don't know. I think you kind of, when you looked at kind of that grouping of corners, Tyreek Stevenson was kind of in that mold. You know, Julius Brents went a little bit earlier than I thought he might, but I still really like that pick for Indy. So I don't know. I think you kind of looked at, you know, I think you can kind of look at this and say, like, they were all kind of in the same group. And, you know, I mean, when you talk about archetypes for kind of what the Bengals are looking for, that's pretty much it in a nutshell. I mean, you get a player, he's not the biggest player in the world, but he ran a 4.26 at the combine, freaky athletic, 39.5-inch vertical. That's kind of what the Bengals have built themselves on in the secondary. Cam Taylor-Britt last year ran a 4.38. You know, you draft Dax Hill at 4.36. I forget it off the top of my head, but you know, you draft Dax Hill, he can fly. You know, you're just kind of adding speed and agility to that secondary. So I think it just kind of fit what they did. And, you know, Turner wasn't one of the guys I don't think we mentioned specifically, but, you know, kind of when you take a deeper dive, it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, I mean, and I thought what Lou said about, you know, speed making up for, you know, the lack of size that, you know, now in this day and age with the wide receivers as fast as they are, you're going to be out of position, so you have to have that catch-up speed, so that becomes more important almost than being a 6'2" or 6'1" corner. You know, it makes sense that they needed depth at corner, but it's hard to look at the picks and separate them because, I mean, obviously they went defense, and defense in all 3 rounds. And so, you know, to me, I think it's a bit of a missed opportunity to not land guys that are going to, you know, the way I framed it in my instant reaction, would play in the AFC Championship this upcoming year. You know, Myles Murphy, I think, would with these two, other than special teams. I don't think special teams counts. maybe if something goes awry with injuries, but I don't think that's how you should plan. I think you saw across the AFC, almost every single team that, is in competition added a skill player, to look for value and impact. And they passed up on a lot. And so, I'm surprised they didn't try to draft at least one guy that could step in. I don't think there's really that many tight ends that, I think are guys that will contribute right away. Left. I thought Darnell Washington was the last one. He went to the Steelers. And running backs,
they passed him.
I wasn't high on the second tier running backs. And, they obviously are going to have to do something at running back beyond now, a day 3 pick to fill that 4 spot on the depth chart with Chris Evans as one of your 4. I'm not sure. I know, Andrew, you wrote about DeAndre Swift being a possibility just because, they're obviously the Lions are shopping him after drafting Jahmyr Gibbs. But running back, still very interested to see how they kind of go forward there.
Yeah, I'm a big Swift guy. I know we talked about that, but I don't know, Mike. The thing that I keep coming back to though is, other teams are going to draft skill position players, right? And other teams are gonna make those kind of moves. But like the Chiefs, right? Like that's a team that everybody kind of looks at with the Bengals and says, oh, those two teams are going to go at it. Well, the Chiefs drafted Rashee Rice, and I think it was the second round, the kid out of SMU. Like, so now you've got a skill position group of Kadarius Toney, Sky Moore, Rashee Rice. I think MVS is still there. You obviously have Travis Kelce at tight end. Like, you're gonna need more than, first off, Cheeto's coming back from ACL. So I think that kind of plays a part in this as well, because you're kind of uncertain as to what he might look like. I also think he's entering a contract year.
He is.
But you're talking about a guy who's coming off an ACL, and you're not going to be playing these kind of two outside corner sets with Hilton in the slot. Like you're going to want to have at sometimes 4 corners on the field at one time. You're going to need to take off a Logan Wilson or a Jermaine Pratt at certain times, because you're just going to need speed on the field. Like if you play the Dolphins at any point, I mean, the Dolphins just drafted Devin Achane, and they obviously have Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill. Like, speed in the secondary matters. So I think
that's fine. But I mean, you could do one. What is Jordan Battle going to do next season legitimately? Special teams.
The third safety on the team. And
be a special teams player.
Whereas
if you drafted, whatever, one of those tight ends in the second round and then a quarterback and the cornerback in the third round, I think you could accomplish the same thing, but also have that impact offensive player. You mentioned Dolphins. That's a really good piece for them, right? I mean, I think in this league, in this modern era, teams are going to score around 20, 25 points a game. You got to score 30 to win. The Bengals are well placed with the skill position players and the quarterback that they have and the offensive line that they have to be able to outscore everybody. And I don't understand why you just try to maximize that strength, because your defense, Myles Murphy, I think, moved the needle a little bit, but these second 2 picks did not really do that. They're not going to, in baseball, have a war that makes sort of a difference. Whereas I think, if Darnell Washington, I know there was, I guess, some concerns late about his medical that might have helped him drop, but if he's healthy and he lights it up for the Steelers, I mean, I think you're going to regret not doing something like that, because, I mean, this offense was at its best last year when Samaje P. Ryan was playing really well during that 2-game stretch, or Hayden Hurst was healthy and contributing. They lost both those guys, and I don't think they replaced either. Mixon's got all sorts of question marks, and they don't really have a pass-catching tight end that can do the things that Hayden Hurst did last year.
Sure, I think, you said you can't really plan for, injuries or whatever. I think you kind of do, though, because, at least they're drafting, the first 3 rounds, they drafted players who, if everyone's healthy, they're not going to start. Like, they're not going to be in the starting lineup week 1, but they're players that are at premium positions of sorts. Like, they're going to play. Like, Myles Murphy is going to play because you need fresh pass rushers. But then also, you can't expect everyone to get through a full 17. So it's not only are you kind of
right,
building
but I
up.
mean, at running back and tight end, you have gaps in the roster.
Sure, but you're
even at a worse spot than those positions they drafted.
You can get a running back later, like the Chiefs
in the draft or just in free agency.
What do you mean? I'm talking in the draft. Like the Chiefs drafted Isaiah Pacheco last year in the 7th round, and he was their starting running back in the Super Bowl. He had 15 carries in that game. Like
that's an exception, though, Andrew. I mean, Isaiah Pacheco, I still believe to this day is an exception.
Go look at the cap hits of running backs across the league, like running backs on rookie deals, and you can find running backs that can give you some kind of juice.
Right, but my point isn't that you should find the minimum. I'm saying you get an impact player, and so like I understand you can find somebody that may make contributions later, or find a guy that will have a role. But I mean, there's a reason that Detroit Lions pegged Gibbs and drafted him with the number 12 pick. I mean, that's extreme, but I mean, I do wonder what he would have looked like in this offense. And that's an extreme example, but those top 5 tight ends. What would have one of them done with Joe Burrow, who's elevated every tight end he's played with? So it's like, yeah, I get what you're saying. Yes, they'll be fine and they'll roll out a team at 53 and whatever. But I just think with the strength of this team you have, you're only going to be able to marginally improve your defense, I feel like, in these sort of 2nd through 5th rounds, because there's not space for these guys to really have a huge role. With the exception of Murphy, I think he will have a consistent spot and could make an impact. But, to do all 3 on defense, for 2 straight years, too, you can't look at these things in a vacuum. It's last year and this year. And, not get – I think they're going to regret that come January when, they need another play. And, man, you kind of missed out.
So there was an interesting question you posed, and it's a fair one about – what are they going to do with Jordan Battle? And, yeah, I mean, the obvious answer is special teams. Like, Jordan Battle himself said he understands that's a role he'd have to play. He played, like, almost 800 snaps on special teams at Alabama, so they clearly saw that side of his tape. But, I mean, this is not a defend the pick because I'm with Michael. I think they drafted him too soon. Not a knock on him. I just think maybe that approach of getting the best guy on the board was a bit much. But, like, maybe what they could do, there's 2 ways I could look at them using him. The first approach is he's kind of, well, I know they're going to keep him at safety. I'm not saying they move him as a cornerback, but, like, he is what Trey Flowers was last year. So Trey Flowers was usually the guy who was on tight ends and bigger body receivers. As a slot corner, granted, yes, but he still went against tight ends. Maybe they use him in those sub packages where, like Andrew said, he's a third safety who comes on the field and you're going against Travis Kelce or you're going against, I don't know, Dawson Knox. I'm just throwing examples out there of guys that are playing. What I could see happening, and this would be interesting, let's assume Mike Hilton or Jalen Davis gets hurt. Somehow they, like Hilton had finger injuries and other injuries, they get hurt. And then you get Dax Hill, put him at the slot position, and then you put Jordan Battle as a starting free safety. Maybe. I don't know if I would agree with that. I'm just saying that's maybe a scenario where you get more usage out of him than just putting him as a special teams player next to Michael Thomas and Stanley Morgan and guys like that. But I am with Michael, though. I'm on the side of, nothing gets Branch. I think he easily was the best player on their board, but you passed up Darnell Washington, I understand Devin Achane was already off the board well before the Bengals got to that pick, but, like, there's some other running backs I think they could have gotten before the end of that round. I'd have to go back and look at the list because there's so many, but, I mean, at the same time, even if there's really no one they missed in that round, like, I get the Isaiah Pacheco example, but I think people get too hung up on that. Like, how many times do you get a running back in the 5th, 6th, 7th round and not necessarily go win a Super Bowl? I get it, the Chiefs were just a good team, but, like, to do what he did with that offense, like, I don't think you're going to see that very often. Now, I'm not saying, go get a running back in the 1st, 2nd round like the Lions did. Good for them. Bengals don't need that. I just don't know if you go that late in the draft. Like, that's where I somewhat disagree with Andrew. As far as tight end goes, I mean, you got Josh Wiley. Cam Latu was taken, I believe, by the 49ers, so he's off the board. I guess you still have Marshawn Ford from Louisville. I'd have to look at the rest of the list of options. Zach Kuntz, Andrew's favorite. Will Mallory, yeah, that's another guy from Miami. Those would be good options. I actually think if you go for Kuntz or Mallory or a Marshawn Ford or a Josh Wiley, those are okay options, but I think everybody would agree when I say that's not Darnell Washington. And I mean, I can only imagine the Bengals blocking against him when they play the Steelers twice next year. And they're saying, gosh, man, that Darnell Washington kid, we could have had him.
Wait. Say that one more time?
They're going to block against him next year, like Darnell Washington.
They're not going to block Darnell Washington.
They're not blocking. I'm sorry,
Washington.
like when he's blocking against them, it's been a long day. When he's blocking against them,
Okay,
they're going to say, my God. Like, could you imagine him just like blocking against Myles Murphy? Like, oh, man, this guy's really good. And not a knock on Murphy, by the way. I'm just saying in general, like, you look at Darnell Washington, it's like, dang, could have, should have, would have. But what I will respect about the Bengals, although I disagree with the approach, what I can respect is they stuck with their guns and they didn't go for need. They didn't go for, okay, we need a tight end, we need a running back. They said we are just going to get the best guy on our board. But I don't agree with it because, like Mike said, if Jordan Battle were a full-time starter, it would not be until maybe, 2025? When, Nick Scott, I guess, is up by that point. His contract is up, or, he somehow beats him out in training camp in the future, or I don't know. It's just going to be a while before I could even consider him as a starter. The only way I could ever see Jordan Battle taking the field as a week 1 starter is if he absolutely, destroys Dax Hill in camp and just outmatches him. But I just don't see it, and that's where I think they went a little bit too far there.
Well, here's the thing with that, though. The picks, they obviously traded where they have 92, and they traded out
to 95, and for a 6th-round pick, number 217.
But the medical
shocking,
stuff,
by the way. I expected
the medical
that.
stuff sounds real with Washington. There seemed to be a lot of concerns. So I'm not saying that they couldn't use a tight end, but the players that went around kind of where they picked. Darnell Washington, 93. Michael Wilson, wide receiver, 94. He's not going to start. Defensive tackle, Broderick Martin out of Western Kentucky. Muhammad,
who I covered, by the way. That actually was a little bit interesting.
He's not going to start. Ricky Stromberg, center, Texas, not going to start. Defensive tackle, Baylor. A kicker, Trey Tucker, wide receiver, Cincinnati.
Kicker. That's crazy.
Cameron Letu. A lot of these guys were not going to play, or they weren't going to be starters. So, I don't know if – I think the Washington point is fair, but, when you get into the 3rd round, you – even when you get into parts of the 2nd round, you're talking about guys that are going to be in competitions. You're not drafting –
right, but I'm
this guy's a starter immediately.
I'm at more if you're going to go defense, you probably draft the offensive player in the 2nd round and then the backup corner, because the Turner's going to be a backup. Branch is going to be a backup. You could have landed either one of them at, you could have landed a backup at that 3rd spot, like you're saying, because that's more likely where you're going to get players that are just competing and not given a second job. I think all those 5 tight ends, top 5 tight ends, Laporta, Mayer, Washington, Schumacher, they would all eventually been their starter here, whether they started out as not or been the primary tight end in receiving sets, split out wide and things like that. So I'm just saying when you look at the draft as a whole, I don't have any problem with the picks individually about who they drafted. I think they got good value with both. I think Branch slipped, and
Battle.
You could see Battle. Sorry, Branch is his teammate. Slipped, and so they weren't bad picks at the spot that they drafted him. It's just when you look at their draft as a whole, I just philosophically would have taken a just different approach in terms of this. You're not in 2 years. Who cares? I mean, you care what your safety looks like. Your secondary looks like in 2 years. I think you should be more concerned with trying to win. This thing right now, when your roster is going to be like we've talked about, as talented as it's going to be, because you have those extensions coming.
So the running back thing, I think that the question is tight end. Because the running back thing, it was kind of out of their hands unless you wanted to trade out of 28 or move up in the 2nd round. Charbonnet goes 52. Gibbs obviously goes way before everybody thinks he's going to go. Bijan was never an option. So I don't know. So you've got
That's fair.
Those guys are gone in the 2nd round. So I guess my question is how much fundamentally how much would you guys, both of you guys, how much would you feel different about their draft right now if it was Michael Mayer, DJ Turner, and then Jordan Battle? Like, how much different are we talking about this draft if Michael Mayer was their first-round pick, or Sam Laporta, or who insert tight end here that they had highest rated on their board after Dalton Kincaid? How much different do we feel?
Well,
I might have.
Go ahead, Mike.
I might have done it. I liked the Myles Murphy pick. Like I said, I would have been more inclined to trade a future pick to get a second-round pick in this round at the start of the second round to have your sort of options, whether it's Charbonnet or one of those tight ends, and add those without coming at the cost. Because then, like I said, I think you have this team in pretty good position where you could lose a future first-round pick, or even whatever, second round or third round, because you've kind of tooled the defense behind this young secondary now. If you had added another pick in this draft earlier and got one of those, I think that would have been something that, that's not how they operate. So, I mean, wasn't expecting it, but that might have been my preferred option of, how they go about things.
So that is a fair question that Andrew asks. My answer to that is, I don't know, it's a little nuanced because I can't answer that without knowing, actually, no, I can answer it because I was going to say, okay, let's say you get to the fourth round and you have like a Kobe Turner or someone like that available from Wake Forest that you can get. I'd say, yeah, it's fine because I think, granted, once you get to that round, Kobe Turner is still a guy who can, I think is a 3-down player. Not saying he's as good as Murphy, but he's a 3-down player like him. You can groom him to, help replace DJ Reader next year. So I'm saying, let's say you lay out that scenario. You lay out that scenario, and then you get a Kobe Turner in the fourth round. I'm cool with that.
Kobe Turner went in the third round.
But I'm saying if he was there, I say that knowing that he was gone, the answer is no, I wouldn't feel comfortable with it because I know he's off the board. But I'm saying if we're in a hypothetical where Andrew's scenario, if you take Mayer and then Turner and then not Branch Battle, and then you can get a Kobe Turner in the fourth round, sure, I'm cool with that. But that's not an option, so I'd say, yeah, it's tough because, I don't know. I like Mayer a lot, and I think he would have been a home run first-round pick, but it still doesn't really change the fact that, like I said with Branch, my God, I keep saying Branch Battle. I don't know if that really – I don't know how to answer that. That's such a tough question. It really just depends on who's in the fourth round, I guess. What D lineman can they get in the fourth round? If there are D linemen they can get, then yeah, I'm okay with that. If not, then no, I don't think that's the best scenario because then you really need a Myles Murphy at that sense.
If you draft a defensive end in the fourth round, you day three, any positivity out of day three, any contributor or any contributors that you get, it's a plus. And I mean that in year one. You're drafting guys who are going to come in and be special teamers or guys who are projects. Guys are lasting to day three for a reason, right? There's a reason that some of these guys are there. And some of them, frankly, might be dumb. It could be a team has a medical report that they don't like or they're afraid of, or, we didn't, Bijan Robinson exists, so we don't know what Roshan John, he didn't start at Texas, so we can't draft him. I'm just making up a hypothetical there. Some of these arguments can kind of be defeated, but whoever you're going to pick on rounds 4 through 7, you're probably not anticipating. So in terms of getting a defensive end in the fourth round as a playmaker, you're probably not getting one just because there's I have the list up now. Defensive ends available, or at least defensive linemen that are available. Scrolling through a list here. Oh God, there's actually not a lot. You get to but you get to a point where you're okay, Moro Ajomo, the defensive end from Texas, Scott Matlock, defensive tackle from Boise State. These are the type of names that you're talking about if you want a defensive end and their defensive lineman in the fourth round, which is why I think that this thing can turn on a swivel pretty quick because let's say the Bengals, what pick do they have in the fourth round? I forget what it is. And I don't want to talk too much about day three because people aren't going to listen to this until day three already happens. But I just think that this thing can turn on a swivel. And with the picks that you make days 1 and 2, you can find a guy day 4 And then all of a sudden the running back position looks vastly different than it does right now. So, like, I think the battle pick was fine. Not gonna. I really like the Myles Murphy pick. I thought that, I said before the draft, I thought that would have been their best case scenario. But I really like that pick. I thought the DJ Turner pick was pretty good. The battle pick, I don't know. But still, like, I don't think it's. I guess my to sum all this up, I think this thing can flip pretty quickly, and it can turn from, I don't know, they need guys that can win now, to, okay, well, now you have a rotational piece at running back and a rotational piece at tight end. Because once you got past a certain number of tight ends, there wasn't a guy who was going to come in and immediately day one, he's the starter.
Well, that's a fair point, because we will have a podcast after this entire thing is over on Saturday night, once, like we said, we get through all the picks that the Bengals have at that point. Because, like I said, they got another pick in the 6th round with that trade in the 3rd round we mentioned with the Chiefs. So we'll see. Do they get their Isaiah Pacheco? And, hey, don't forget Travis Kelce. He was a 5th-round pick from UC of all places. Do they magically land like one of those guys at tight end? Is that going to be the next Travis Kelce? Who knows? We need a couple of years to get an answer to that question. But stay with us. Like I said, Saturday night, we're going to do a full recap on the draft, see what we think of the day 3 picks, grade the draft all together, and what this means for the Bengals going into the offseason. But we appreciate you all staying with us on this late night post-draft edition of the podcast. Once again, for myself, Mike, and Andrew, I'm Muhammad Ahmad. We will see you in a little under a day. Until then, take care.